This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you. Okay, just to confirm, David, you can hear us?
Yes.
John, you can hear us?
Yes.
Dusty, you can hear us?
Yes.
Mike, you can hear us?
Yes.
Joe, you can hear us?
Yes.
Kathy, you can hear us? You might be muted, Kathy.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. We do have everybody here. Okay. We'll call this meeting to order 9:42. Just really one major item of business today, but first is consideration of the meeting minutes. Everybody had a chance to review those. Thank you, staff, for the very quick turnaround on these minutes.
Move approval.
I have a second.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Minutes approved. The main item, item 3, consideration of the emergency business assistance grant applications. So starting on page, well, I guess it's listed as page 1. Mark has his memo outlining the unclear items that staff would like direction from us, and then the full listing of the approved applicants, the amounts, and the total amount. So, Mark, is it your thought that we would go through each one of these unclear items to give direction to staff?
That's how I had originally thought we could proceed, is to try to validate anything that does not show as a clear eligibility qualified application. So the CDA would review the items and give staff an indication, and then any other discussion. Subsequently, there's a motion at the end of that memo then that the committee could make.
It looks like 17 items. So for efficiency, maybe we'll go through again. I think staff has a recommendation on all of these. I don't necessarily want to go around to everybody for each one of these. So I think I will propose an action on each one of them. And if anybody disagrees, you can state your disagreement, and then we'll decide how to proceed. So the first item is Harvest Motion Design. So again, animation, motion graphics. Staff is, I believe, saying that this would be ineligible. It's kind of falls in the computer services professional offices, which I believe we were pretty clear about. So I would say that I would agree with staff that this is ineligible. If anybody disagrees, can you comment now?
Can I just ask, what does FTF stand for?
Face to face.
He's getting with the kids.
I just got in the habit of abbreviating that. I apologize.
No, thanks for the clarification. So any disagreement on that one? Okay. Moving on to item 2, Lakeside Natural Medicine. This business was in the process of moving. I don't think staff has a recommendation. I would recommend that we approve this one. This seems to be, sort of if I read it correctly, caught up in circumstances from one location to another. And I guess the staff is saying that we should provide the grant based on the prior location. I guess I'm fine with that. Do I read that correctly, Mark?
That is correct.
So just the question is I'm assuming from a dollar grant perspective, to grant it based on the prior rent versus their upcoming rent?
The real issue comes up in the Well, there's two issues. One is their current occupancy permit was issued after the eligibility date, but they were operating on their previous occupancy permit. And then the next item is the applicant who came in after they left their previous space, whose occupancy permit is, again, outside of the program criteria. So, I mean, the real thing is, again, that they were transitioning. Their current occupancy permit on their application wasn't effective until after the April 1st date, but they were clearly operating at the previous location prior to that, so I believe that they would be eligible, but it's got some components to it. I just want the CDA to make that determination.
Fair enough. So I would agree with staff on that this should be an eligible business. Anybody disagree with that?
I agree with your opinion.
Okay,
Mark, I just wanted to ask, is the application that's in place based on the rent from the original location, or is it based on the new rent?
It's based on the 3510 address rent.
Okay. I still think they're eligible.
Yeah, I would agree.
I was just curious about that.
Yep. Okay, next one is Orchid Chinese.
One sec.
Yes.
Is the rent going up or down?
I don't have a historical rent document, only on what their current position is.
Going forward. I just want to make sure it's not based on older, greater rents, if they're downsizing. Would be my only concern.
I don't have.
Yeah, they're applying for their new location, so they didn't provide any data on their prior location. So
that's fine, as long as it's current and going forward. That's fine.
Yeah, it's the current and going forward location is what they're requesting on, which I think.
Okay, no problem.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Wait, I thought the recommendation is that they should be get a grant based on their old location, 4433. What's the proposal? The old or the new?
Sorry, the proposal is the new. They've applied based on the new, the 3510 location. So I might have misstated that when I first addressed this one. So it is on the new location that they're requesting on.
The exception was because they had the occupancy permit for the old location, but their new occupancy permit was past a few days past the deadline to apply.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. So again,
they're still a Shorewood business, one way or the other.
Business, yes. I mean, there's going to, I'm assuming there's a slight difference in what the what the grant would have been. For purposes of this one, I think we can grant based on the requested, which is the 3510 Oakland. So nobody disagree with that? Okay, thank you. Orchid Chinese Medicine, they were in the process of moving into the prior location of Lakeside, don't have an occupancy permit, so I feel like the criteria were pretty clear about occupancy permit, so I would say this one, again, as staff making a recommendation here, I would think this would not be eligible.
Well, I mean, again, if we're suggesting that the previous applicant actually was the one occupying that space during the eligible period, that we wouldn't necessarily award two grants for the same location, even though the other applicant was based on their new rent. The occupancy for the Orchid Chinese Medicine applicant came in after the 4/1 date, and yes, that's the general gist, is to see if the CDA concurs that would not be an eligible application.
And Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but in our previous meeting, didn't we, I guess we didn't pass the concept of funding businesses that were in the process of opening? We rejected that, correct? So
no, you accepted that.
Oh, I thought we rejected, no, business is
No,
not.
we rejected it. We
Yeah,
rejected it.
I think it was a 3-3 tie on that one. So I feel like this business falls into that they're not open yet, so they're not eligible.
Hey, Peter, this is John. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
So this is a new business in Shorewood. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes. So it's
Sort of
basically,
irrelevant. Did they move from somewhere else, or this is a startup from scratch? Does anyone know?
This is Bart. They moved here from Bayview. They are new to Shorewood. They moved here from Bayview.
Okay.
So if I could, Chair Hammond?
yes.
Again, just to review, the first item from the last meeting was a discussion that staff interprets on the 4/1 date that it was open for business and not closed subsequent to April 1st. And that was rejected in the context of saying that an occupancy permit would suffice as being qualifying. So this is, again, a little slightly nuanced on the process. In this case, the occupancy permit was issued after the eligibility date, whereas in the discussion points for that item last time, it was for occupancy permits that were issued before the date. So again, just looking for additional clarification on what I think is a little unique situation, and staff doesn't want to speak for the CDA on that matter.
I mean, if we weren't gonna give a grant to someone who had an occupancy permit before April 1st, but was not open for business, but then why would we give it to someone whose occupancy permit is even later? Or am I misunderstanding what the question is?
No, the decision was to, if you have an occupancy permit prior to April 1 and we're in the process of opening, that you would be eligible.
No, the decision was you were not eligible. It was just me and Dusty were the only ones in favor of that.
No, I was in favor of that as well, but it was a 3-3. It ended up being a 3-3 vote on that one. So I thought it did not. That was the 3-3 one.
Right.
What did the minutes say?
I was just looking back to read them.
I just want to make sure I'm not messing anything up as well, right?
Yep. Shoot. Here we go.
Roll call vote was taken.
Yep. So it was. So. Right.
I
so
was in no.
Staff interpretation.
No. It was 3-3. The motion failed. Yeah, so it's 3-3.
The motion failed. The motion of including them in failed.
Right. Right. So I don't.
Yeah. So I believe we did not agree to fund businesses with a permit but not yet up and running for business.
Right. You had to have been open on April 1st.
Yes.
That's what failed.
Correct. The motion was for staff's interpretation, and staff's interpretation failed. That's how I read. That's how I wrote the minutes, and that's how the meeting progressed. So prior to the vote, it was clarified that the vote was being taken on the staff interpretation. So staff's interpretation essentially failed. So in my opinion, that would mean that the opposite side would have won, for lack of better, but we didn't re-vote on anything.
And if you look at the last line on that topic on the second page, right before the roll call vote was taken, that was my takeaway from the discussion, is that an occupancy permit would be enough to qualify.
Someone brought up the question of, someone may have read that, had an occupancy permit, but read the guidelines and not applied because they thought, I don't qualify. Because I know we had that guy opening a CBD dispensary who called in on one of our calls, and I don't know if he's on here. So I don't know. My interpretation of the discussion was that there was not support for businesses that had an occupancy permit but were not open. That was my interpretation of the discussion. But the other thing is we have a tie-break vote on this at this meeting, so someone could move to reconsider.
I was going to make a motion to clarify that.
I think that's a good idea.
At this meeting.
So.
Okay, so it would have to be me, Dusty, or Pete, because we were on the prevailing side, correct?
Yes.
So someone can make a motion. I don't want to make the motion, but somebody, because I'm in favor of the outcome.
I will make a motion to reconsider staff's interpretation of eligibility for businesses with a valid occupancy permit, but not yet operational and up and running. Staff's interpretation was that those were ineligible. So maybe period there? I don't know. So the motion is that those businesses, to concur with staff's interpretation that those businesses are ineligible.
Okay, I'll second the motion to reconsider. So
okay, all those in favor?
Yeah, go ahead.
All those in favor of reconsidering the item?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Okay, you're okay. So one nay. So we are reconsidering the item. Let's see if we can do this efficiently. So again, I think we can just vote. I don't think there's need for discussion necessarily. We had quite a bit of discussion last time. Joe may have some questions, but again, the staff's interpretation.
I get it. I just want to know that an aye vote means that despite having a valid occupancy permit, if they are not operational, they are disqualified. Is that correct?
Correct. An aye vote is going with staff recommendation, which is that those businesses are not eligible for this program.
I'm clear then.
Okay.
Then there are the two requirements. You have to have a valid occupancy permit by April 1, and you have to have been open for business. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, other than Orchid Chinese Medicine, are there any other businesses that were kind of caught in that area of having a valid occupancy permit by April 1, but not being open? Is this the only business?
No, there were others, and I'm in the process of trying to reconstruct what the current recommendations were based on staff's understanding of the CDA's previous instructions. So I will do that as we process through that, and if you have no objection, we can loop back to those items at the end of the list that you currently have in front of you.
Right. So Mark, so good. We didn't give good direction, and so the numbers we're looking at include businesses as eligible that had a permit but were not yet operational. Correct?
Yes.
In the listing. Okay.
And this is Dawson adding something. And is it true, Mark, that there could have been businesses that never even applied because they looked at those two basic criteria and didn't meet them, and so you don't even have them in your pool of possible add-ons?
It's possible. I don't know if that's actually the case or not. I mean, the only two businesses that I think of is prospective businesses over at the Hayek, and those clearly aren't operational yet. And maybe the new pharmacy on Oakland and Capitol there, but they wouldn't qualify as a pharmacy in any case. So
Okay.
I think we captured most of the people. It's just a couple fell into that unique, again, timing issue. Were they open or were they in the process of opening? And the one that's in the packet now, their occupancy permit is even after that. But again, I felt it merited the CDA to evaluate. Happy to have some more discussion on this, and hopefully in the next 15 minutes I can backtrack and figure out which other businesses were no longer open or were not open.
Should we maybe delay this issue and go on to a next one until you get that information? Would that make it easier?
Well, I think you can continue down the list if once you agree to accept the previous staff recommendation. Right now, you've just agreed to reconsider.
Yeah.
I think if we reconsider,
and then I will proceed dual track while you're deliberating the other items.
well, if we proceed right now and sort of reconfirm what you thought the interpretation was, then we're fine. You don't have to make any changes, right?
Right.
Then everything remains the same.
No, I've made changes based on the last meeting.
That's what I mean. If we have a vote right now that says those are eligible, then you won't have to make any changes to the spreadsheet you put together, right?
No, because the last CDA meeting did not concur with CDA with staff's recommendation.
And so that's why that's why you included them. So if we vote now to include them, then you don't have to make any changes to the eligible.
Oh, I thought we were voting to exclude them because they were not operational.
That's the question: is are they eligible or ineligible? Staff is saying ineligible, but so we have to vote on that. As I understand it, we have to vote on that right now to decide are they eligible or ineligible. If we make the determination that they are eligible, then I don't think Mark has to make any changes to the document.
No.
But we're going to vote them ineligible.
Right.
So
That motion.
the question is, are they included in the spreadsheet now or are they not? And I agree with Pete. I think they are included in the spreadsheet now because Mark understood our motion the way Mark understood what we decided.
Correct.
I think they are included.
All applications are on the spreadsheet. The items that I was suggesting would have been ineligible at the prior meeting, that interpretation did not pass. Therefore, they are now designated as eligible on the documents in front of you.
Yes,
so
exactly.
If you're reconsidering to go back and accept staff's original recommendation that they had to have been operating regular business prior to April 1st, in addition to just having an occupancy permit, then I believe there will be 2 or 3 that are currently designated as eligible that will become ineligible.
Yep, agree 100%. Jesse, you might be muted.
Could you clarify that a yes vote means that this particular business will continue to be eligible? Is that or is it the other way around? A no vote?
Yeah, the other way around. A yes vote is agreeing with staff's original recommendation that these businesses are ineligible. That is a yes vote. A no vote is saying that they are eligible.
Okay.
Everybody clear?
Not only did they didn't have an occupancy permit and they were not operating. They don't pass on either count.
Sorry, Kathy, say that again.
Orchid Chinese Medicine does not pass on either count. Number 1, they had no valid occupancy permit, and number 2, they were not open for business. So they become ineligible.
I agree. I think we have a question. I'm sorry for all this. We have a question prior to that, which again is reconsideration of this eligibility question. We clarify that first, as I see that, and then we get back to the list and look at Orchid, and I agree with you. I don't think they're eligible based on 2 criteria. So, but I feel like we first have to provide staff clarity on what we were trying to say at the last meeting with respect to this eligibility question. So
I'm really confused.
I believe there is a motion on the floor right now that I've made. That again, a yay vote is saying that these businesses are not eligible. These businesses that had an occupancy permit but were not up and running are not eligible. That's a yay vote. A nay vote is that these businesses are eligible. John, did you have a comment?
No, I don't think so. I think
Okay.
I understand what's going on.
And Dusty, did you have a comment?
I don't have a comment. I think I'm clear on what the vote is going to mean. I just wanted to say that all of the businesses that have applied and all of the businesses that are preparing to start in the village, there was a lot of effort that went into bringing them here, and a lot of effort by landlords and staff, including the bid to recruit them to come to our community. So, to not share this funding is, it's a tough decision for everybody to make, but I'm going to stick with my original decision. So I just wanted to share those thoughts.
So sorry, we probably have not followed Robert's rules here, but do I have a second for this motion?
Second.
Okay. So all those in favor of agreeing with staff's recommendation that businesses with an occupancy permit but not yet operational are ineligible, all those in favor of that, say yay. Oh, sorry. We're going to do a roll call. We're going to do a roll call on this one. Rebecca, would you take us around the group, please?
Absolutely. Amenta.
Nay.
Dawson.
Yes.
Kraus. Kraus.
John?
John Kraus is yes.
Sage.
Aye.
Lorino.
Nay.
Hammond.
Nay.
Stokebrand.
Yes.
4-3.
Okay. So they are ineligible, so Mark now will need to update the listing to remove those businesses that were included.
I think there's only one, and I'll add that to the end of the discussion if that's okay.
Okay. So now getting back to Orchid Chinese, as Kathy said, I think this business unfortunately fails on 2 counts, so I do not believe they are eligible. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay. Shorewood Animal Hospital, I don't believe there's anything to consider here, right? They withdrew their request, so no consideration. Is that correct, Mark?
Correct.
Okay. Tito's Pizza, number 62. So again, I think I need a little further clarity on this. This is basically a carry-out delivery. So again, I thought at our last meeting we would have said that this business was not eligible.
That is correct, and I'm just looking to confirm.
Got it. Any disagreement with staff's interpretation that this business is ineligible? Okay. Next one, item 68, does not hold an occupancy permit for the premises. Again, I think we were pretty clear on this one that you needed to have an occupancy permit, so any disagreement with staff's interpretation that this is not an eligible business? Mark, is there any other nuance of this one, or is it pretty straight up just no occupancy permit?
No, that's pretty much it. And again, my goal is to bring all items, whether they were declared ineligible or just I'm looking for reaffirmation or, clarity. Yep. So, no occupancy permit, just.
Yeah. And again, as you all know, I've been trying to default to giving money, but I think we were pretty clear on this one. And I think John made it before and Mike's made it. There are plenty of people that may not have applied that didn't have one. So to say yes to this one seems, I don't know, we're creating a black hole. So, okay. Next one is item 70. This appears to not be a business, but basically the landlord property owner. So
correct.
I think staff is saying ineligible. I would agree with that. Do I have anybody disagreeing with that interpretation of this one? Okay, thank you. Make sure you're not muted as well if you're trying to yell at the top of your lungs that you disagree. Okay, next item is item 74, Soundbite. So, if I understand this one correctly, well, I guess in a nutshell, this one, the business is already maxing out anyway. So by declaring this ineligible, we're really not limiting the proceeds that the business can get, correct?
Well, I would frame it that way. You could make an argument that you have an umbrella corporation that owns a building and they're operating multiple businesses, and each individual business should then be eligible for grants irrespective of the same ownership. I would not concur with that argument, and that's really what I'm trying to suggest here, is that the building owner is going to qualify under a different business for the maximum grant. Yep. And that we should not be issuing secondary grants because they operate more than one business in their same space.
Okay. Yep. Okay. And again, this one, basically they've applied for their, if you will, on-premises business. The Soundbite design is they go out, and so this was one, as you had said in the last meeting, this is one of those where people are saying my clients are impacted, so I'm not able to do it. But again, we rejected that as well. So I would agree with staff's interpretation that Soundbite design in and of itself is ineligible. Does anybody disagree with that interpretation?
I don't disagree, but I do have one point of information.
Yep.
I would like to know, in each of these instances, is there a reason why we don't include the name, or will we, when we put the list out, who the check is written to? Besides the business name, could we have the individual owner's name available for public information?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll need to think. I don't know that I have a feeling on that right now. I don't know. What is that? I don't want to detract the conversation, but Kathy, just curious, what do you see that adds to the?
I just think it's important for the public to know specifically who's getting the money.
Beyond the business itself, like to an individual person?
Correct. Because, I mean, I believe, is this the only case where the check will be written to the same person as Camp Bar?
That is correct.
I had something to add. Doesn't Soundbite design, or they did at one point, lease the entire, the former sun tanning building? So it is a separate location.
He owns that.
My understanding is the atrium facility, right by next to the across from Atwater School, and then Soundbite Design is in a lower level basement of that facility with an office space, and then the same umbrella corporation also operates the Camp Bar at a different location. So the atrium and Soundbite Design operate at the same business address that is owner-occupied businesses, which is why staff believes that the limits apply to, to the premises, not necessarily to the business.
Right.
Whether or not the camp is a separate location, it's a separate premise. I didn't see any guidance in the packet that said, you know, people who own more than one building would not qualify, so that was not flagged as being questionable.
Or more than one business, right?
Well, more than one building.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's just keep going down the list. Next one is item 86, Trilogy Hair Salon. I don't want to put words in Mark's mouth, but again, I believe we talked about this extensively at the last one, where we were looking for certification or attestation from the owner that they would not be collecting these sub rents, if you will. So here's one where they are receiving some. So I believe staff is just looking to confirm CDA's interpretation that this would not be eligible since the owner is collecting those rents. Do I have that correct, Mark?
Well, the context of that discussion, from my perspective, was did those rents provide enough income where they would not have met the 50% fiscal impact criteria under the other eligibility criteria. In this case, I don't believe the fees collected would have prevented them to qualify under those criteria, but you know, in conjunction with the discussion at the last meeting, I felt it was important to bring this to the CDA so that they can weigh in on that item as well. So staff would generally consider this to be eligible.
Wait, I'm sorry, could you say that last part again, Mark?
So staff would generally consider this to be eligible.
Because of the 50% question.
Because the amount of the fees involved is not raised to the level of impacting whether 50% of the operating revenues have been lost. Clearly more than 50% of the operating revenues have been lost, but they do get, according to the applicant, they're still collecting some payments from certain operators or a portion of the payments. I'm not sure exactly how they waive 300 out of 800. But that certainly does not represent 50% of normal operating revenues, which is what the initial clarification was designed to address.
So staff's recommendation is that Trilogy is eligible.
That would be correct.
Does anybody disagree with that? Okay.
Are any of the individual operators at Trilogy, did they put in also?
No, they do. They would not be eligible because they would not hold the occupancy permit.
Okay, so essentially we have an owner of the entire salon who's giving a little bit of a break to the operators, but still is asking for 2 months rent. Yeah, I'm
They're
not
still
sure.
applying for the grant, yes.
Yep.
I mean, I guess I'm okay with it, but only because, I mean, I'm not really okay with it, but I think this is getting to like real fine level, and we just don't, you know, we just didn't design the program to answer these kind of questions. So. Yeah.
Well, I think, David, that's a good point. You know, you almost think they're trying to do the right thing by providing some level of break to the sub fees, if you will. And so for us, I guess, not to give them seems to go against them, you know. So I would agree. So it sounds like this business is eligible, and I'm not hearing any disagreement on that. Okay. Next item is item 90, the janitors. So again, I believe this is a situation, again, where they're obviously going out to other locations to conduct their business. So it's the downstream question. So staff, I would think is, well, does staff have an interpretation of ineligible for this one, or?
Well, the challenge on this particular item, again, is does the nature of the business require face-to-face interaction with people? And quite honestly, I could go either way on this if I were king of the world. So I'm just really bringing it to the CDA for clarification.
If you were king of the world, what you would?
I could go either way.
Yeah. But again, and I'm sorry, I'm looking back at the minutes too. We were still. I thought the face-to-face was again sort of the question of on-premises face-to-face.
Right. Well, staff's question is, I mean, does the nature of the business itself rely on any face-to-face interactions? I mean, if they were carpet cleaners, would that be different in your mind versus janitorial services? Or again, it's a challenge.
Yeah, it is a challenge.
I mean, it is face-to-face, but it's not necessarily face-to-face in Shorewood, right? It's everywhere.
Yeah. Does anybody have a strong?
The question is, are we supporting business activity in Shorewood, or are we just supporting any commercial lease? I mean, those are different things.
We're supporting Shorewood businesses. But
right, but I mean businesses that are doing stuff in Shorewood, economic activity in Shorewood, or just happen to be located here and renting space. I mean, to me, I think we should limit it to businesses that are conducting activity that's specific to Shorewood.
Yeah, and I was again focusing mostly on the face-to-face at the business location, and that's what's been shut down. This one is sort of again going out to locations, and they can't do that right now because those client locations are shut down. But that's an extension of the program that I don't believe is what we were contemplating here. So I would say,
if I could just add another comment again, if you were an interior designer and had to go out to people's locations to meet with people to do your business, that is kind of the thing that we were talking about last time. Your business still requires you to meet with people. I'm not sure if this falls into the same category. So again, I don't have a recommendation either way on this. It's just, I can certainly, again, extrapolate going the other direction. If you were again, a carpet cleaning service, would that be a difference, or whatever? It's on the edge.
Yeah.
I know
until you see their client list, if you saw their client list, obviously you'd know, right? If they're cleaning a lot of businesses in Shorewood. But in the interest of someone who's paying for an occupancy permit in Shorewood and decided to locate here, I would err on the side of including this business.
I know we have other interior designers on here, so I'm not sure this is the only situation where we have someone who rents a space, but their business is primarily done outside of Shorewood.
Right, and that was clarified at the last meeting because they still do face-to-face contact, and that was limited, whether it was in their retail location in Shorewood or out in the community.
All right, so Kathy's expressed eligible. Again, I'd like to include more than not, so I am fine with eligible for this one.
I'm fine with eligible.
Anybody disagree with eligible for this one?
I do,
David,
but
you disagree? Okay.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, we just need one. You guys have three, so I don't know, John, Joe, or Desi.
I'm okay with it. I'm fine. I'm fine granting it. I think that Kathy brought up a good point. If 50% or 60% of their business was local, it would make all the difference in the world. But we don't have that information, and they are a viable business within the community, and I'd rather be inclusive.
I would agree. Dusty's comments. This is John.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm conflicted because I would feel the same way about sound by design. So I
Okay.
feel like they got excluded then.
Yeah. All right, so the janitors would be eligible, Mark.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to 91. So staff is recommending ineligible based on the items you've addressed here in red. I would agree with staff's interpretation of that one. Anybody disagree with that? Again, on item 91. Okay. Item 92, Alliance Française. This is probably outside of what we've kind of considered. So a school, Mark, any other background on what they, so it's just, right, this is a kind of a unique, I guess, business within Shorewood.
Well, the challenge, again, as staff tries to be thoughtful about this, so your fundraising efforts, there's got to be a certain component of face-to-face interaction to make that come to fruition. Even though 45% is from the classwork, so again, it's right on the fringe of where I'm just not quite comfortable declaring eligibility. So I just brought this to CDA to evaluate.
I don't know. To me, this is, I mean, their budget is from fundraising in order to do the face-to-face. To me, right? They're raising money to do the on-site classrooms because, you know, probably they're subsidizing some of the classes and need other money to do stuff. I would think this would be an eligible business for the program. Does anybody disagree with that?
I'm sorry, Pete, you said it is eligible?
I would consider it to be eligible, yes.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay. Anybody disagree with that? Okay. So that 92 is eligible. 95, the workroom. So here's, as David was saying, sorry? Oh, I thought I heard someone say something. Okay, sorry, workroom 95. So again, this is a bit like, to me, like the janitors, you know, where I think they do some stuff on site, but they also do interior design at in-home for people. And it does say 80% of the business comes from our brick and mortar, meaning their direct location on Oakland. Is that right, Mark?
That's correct.
I would consider this to be an eligible business for the program. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay, then so 95 is eligible. I don't know how to pronounce this one correctly, 98. This is the co-working situation. So again, this office operation, not really retail sales. So people are coming in and using shared space here, correct? To do their businesses.
Well, that would be part of the point that made this unclear. The other point is that they're stating that they're still receiving 70% of normal activity sales / revenues, although they do expect that to decline. So there's kind of two components to that, to the criteria for this applicant. Sales, and then whether they're the amount of revenues that they're losing, and whether or not they are an office space, basically.
Yep. Okay. So staff is recommending ineligible. Does anybody have any disagreement with ineligible for this one? Okay. 98 ineligible. 99 Drugs R Us, medical supply store. They are considered an essential. So they are open and operating currently. Mark, is that correct? Correct.
That would be my impression. Yes.
So to me, I would feel like this is ineligible if they're operating and they're not subject. They were not subject to the order, or they were subject but staying open as part of the order. So I would propose ineligible for this one. Does anybody disagree with that? Any other nuance?
I
of this
concur.
one?
If not, I concur because they also do not have an occupancy permit.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Okay.
Their occupancy permit expired. Which
So
is
that's a
correctable.
problem.
Okay. Okay, and the last two, let's take them one at a time. So again, just to be clear, Mark, 99 ineligible. I believe that was consensus of the group. 102 East Garden, staff is recommending ineligible. Principally, I believe because of the dine-in services was less than the 50% as we had stated.
Correct.
Is that correct, Mark?
That's correct.
Okay. I would love to give them money, but I think we had an extensive conversation about this last time, and I think I think the consensus of the group was that this would not be eligible. So, does everybody agree with staff's recommendation that this is an ineligible business?
Yes.
Okay.
Agree.
And then the last, I believe, is sort of the same situation. The best burgers in the world, Crave Cafe.
Yes, indeed.
Well, Culver's has really good burgers too. I don't want to get in trouble here for picking a burger place over another. I love all the burgers in Shorewood. But I believe this is sort of the same case again. Their takeout is most of their business. So per the last discussion, this would be an ineligible business. Is there any disagreement on that from the group?
I think they own their building too, don't they?
I believe they do, yes.
Yes.
So you're just saying from a hard dollar out-of-pocket rent expense, they'll have maybe a mortgage, but they don't have the direct rent expense.
Yeah, right. I mean, I know this isn't a rent program anymore per se, but I think that factors in.
Okay. So again, anybody disagree with staff's recommendation that this is ineligible? Okay. But everybody needs
Chair Hammond?
from them. Yes.
Before you proceed to the motion or additional discussion, staff has identified that applicant number 14, the Lash Lounge, was also not open for regular operations prior to April 1st and would, under the reconsideration of the previous guidance, would now be ineligible.
Okay.
If you can concur with that, I can amend.
I believe the CDA gave, I believe that's ineligible now based on the vote we took today and the direction. So, yeah. Anybody disagree with that interpretation?
And then one additional point of information for the committee is applicant number 13, For Paul, has just withdrawn their request for funding. They received grant money and notified the bid director that they were withdrawing their request for funding in this program.
You said they received, you mean they received grant funding with as part of our program, or they got funding elsewhere?
Elsewhere.
Okay, well, that's good for them. Okay. Okay.
I was looking at application number 16. I believe they own their location, don't they?
That's fine. That's part of they can own as part of the program. They just their reimbursement is just based on a different calculation. than the
Okay.
for the rent amount. So they
Well,
are.
they
they are-
presented a lease document to support that. Otherwise, I would have noted it as owner occupied.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure they own it, but they could be separate. They
Yeah,
could
the
be
business
doing.
maybe is separate. Okay, before we move on, just because we weren't clear last time, does staff have clear direction on all of the business items that you've listed here with respect to eligibility and ineligibility, Mark?
We do.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I have one point of information question. This is
Sure.
Kathy. Can you tell me how the Shorewood Foundation fundraising effort and donation from, I believe, is it the Gores Foundation? How does that play into what we're doing here today?
Steph, are you on the line?
You know, I don't know directly,
You guys
Kathy.
hear
I
me?
know oh, yes, now we can.
Steph, sorry. So the foundation grant dollars will be able to kind of supplement maybe some of these that did fall through the cracks, maybe some of our mental health therapists who have been reaching out. So it's just a kind of more targeted help to people that are able to actually show us need. So they're going to have to supply us with P&L statements and that sort of thing.
Yep. So I would say, you know, we have been, Steph and staff have been in discussions with the foundation. I would say there's not, at this point, coordination or integration between the two programs. So the foundation is kind of, I think they're looking at
Correct.
what the
Yeah,
CDA
it'd
is
be
doing
totally.
here. And, yeah, and then they may augment or sort of try to, as Steph said, supplement in areas that we were not able to address with this program.
Okay, and will they have any public information available?
I don't know. I don't know their requirements.
They're not required to.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. But we will add the names of the people who get the checks from the CDA, right?
That's correct.
Well,
Thank you.
is that a consensus? I don't want to provide direction to staff just based on one person's thoughts. Does the entire CDA concur with that? Let me take a step back.
Are the checks going to a person or to the business?
Well, they got to go to.
They should go to the business.
They're going to
No,
go
they
to
should go to the business.
Yeah, so I feel like we give.
They have to go to the.
Yeah.
Is there an applicant name on the form?
Yes, there is.
And that's an individual, not a DBA.
No, it's usually the business, but again, if, you know.
I think in the interest of transparency and good government, we want this to all be as open as possible. And we should err on the side of shedding light on the information and putting the names out there. If someone is doing a lot in the community and doing a lot of business and putting a lot of jobs up there, I think that's a good reason enough to let people know.
Let them know what? If the check goes to a business, who owns the business?
Yeah, I think that's important to know, you know, the people involved. Just as a point of public information.
If there's a name on the application, it would be public information anyhow. I mean, someone could FOIA it. I mean, I agree that we should make that information public. I guess if they've applied as a business and maybe the person is not I don't know. I mean, the person who put in the application may not be the owner. But I agree. I mean, I think we should list whoever the businesses and the names. I mean, I'm in support of putting as much information out there.
Staff has no problem adding that information as it's available, and then we can certainly include that in the next CDA meeting report, because We will also provide the amount of the grant in this calculation, because right now we're talking about requests.
Yes.
So again, I, as staff has no objection to including that information on this table.
And I'm sorry, just to be clear, you're going to, for public dissemination, you're going to include who the applicant requester is?
Correct.
Okay.
If it's available.
If it's available on the application.
Correct.
Is that, does anybody disagree with that direction to staff from the CDA? Okay. All right, so with that, are we ready for the recommended motion? Is that where we stand, Mark, staff, Rebecca? Am I on the right page?
If discussion has concluded, then that would be the next step,
Right.
I believe.
Oh, well, the motion is to do a pro rata distribution of grants. So looking at, okay, I'm not sure that a pro rata distribution, I mean, it is the simplest and quickest and easiest, but it also, I think, has the disadvantage that some of the, smaller places that are gonna, I mean, we could assume have less of a, like I talked last time about who has cash and who has debt, So, I mean, some of these smaller businesses probably have less in cash. So if we give them 3/5, they may not have enough to make it. And I'm not sure we're really helping the smallest of the small here. So I would propose like funding, picking a number under 3,500 or under 3,000, whatever number we pick, and funding 100% of the smallest of the small, and then doing something prorated that after that.
Wow. That's a big change.
Okay, so just to get to conclusion, and again, not the Roberts Rules person in the room, if we brought the motion as it's written to the group, and then you provide an amendment, Davida?
Well, I'm just raising it for discussion. I mean, I also looked through at total amounts by certain sectors, and there's 54,000 to dentists. We've already talked about dentists. You know how I feel about dentists. I mean, I love getting dental work done. I'm not making about dentists,
No,
but I'm just not sure that they. Again, I think a dentist is the kind of a business that most likely is going to have enough cash to get through a couple of months.
I'm not comfortable making assumptions about people's cash positions. I would also make the converse argument that if someone put in for $10,000, their actual expenses their actual impact could be $30,000, and we've already capped them. And if someone put in for $500 and they can't come up with the $200 in the middle, I mean, it's a dollar per dollar number for the smaller applicants. It's not a lot of money. So even if they,
I want to say too that some of these applicants who put in for 10,000 and one who's going to get 20,000 is someone who's gotten, I believe he's gotten facade grants. So and not even that so much as like if you look at there's places in the Mosaic. There's certain buildings on Oakland Avenue that this village has subsidized strongly, a lot of money over the history. And I don't know if the members of the CDA have looked back in the amount of dollars, hundreds of thousands in terms of tenant improvements in some of these buildings, and millions of dollars in public money.
That's a different discussion I'm happy to have. Let's talk about your motion.
Let me finish. Can I please finish? I have the floor. So, you need to look at the history of how much public investment has already been made. For example, in the Mosaic, okay? Not only was there millions of dollars in public money given in TIF to that. There was a facade grant to Blues Egg, and there were multiple facade grants. Okay, so we've given out of two pockets already, and now, so yes, I understand this is to the business, but are you telling me that that property owner is not granting any kind of rent reduction to these tenants? So, I mean, I think my position is if you're a building owner that you have already benefited from public investment, it's time for you to give back to Shorewood instead of asking Shorewood to, for a third time, give to you. So I'm unhappy with funding and it's also incentivizing the wrong behavior. The behavior we're expecting from landlords is to come to agreement and reduce rent during this time period. What we're doing is the wrong incentive. So these landlords who have already gotten money and are not reducing rents, and we're incentivizing the wrong behavior. So I have that problem with it also.
Yeah, but David, I think you're being very narrow-sighted here. Let's take, for example, a landlord that owns a small strip store that's owned the building for 30 years, owns the building outright, and has huge cash flow. And that guy is not granting any concessions to their tenants. You don't know what's going on. You're focusing on your pet project that you hate. Get it, got it. But you're making huge assumptions all across the board here about what people are or are not doing. And that's why I could never support anything like that.
So let me clarify, it's not pet projects that I hate. It's looking at the policy and the history of the subsidizing that the village has done. That's all it's not that I hate or dislike any of these projects. It's that these projects have already benefited from a lot of public subsidy. But anyway,
but you're talking about the same projects over and over and over again. So obviously you got something stuck in your craw about these particular buildings.
John, you don't need to, let's just keep it on the policy, okay? You don't need to make personal, let's just keep it on the policy. I'm bringing up a policy issue of the type of subsidies that have been done in the past, facade grants that have been given to buildings that were TIF funded, and now we're continuing to subsidize those same owners. I have a problem with that.
Could I make a comment on that?
Sure, and then I'd like to move to the...
I don't disagree that revisiting how much grant money was previously given might have merit. My point was that the motion you were suggesting doesn't address that. It was just saying, let's fund pro rata more to the lower applicants than the higher ones. And I don't feel that would adequately address the grievance that some people have benefited more from previous programs. It contains a bunch of broad assumptions about people who applied for less versus people who applied for more that we aren't privy to knowing. And it doesn't really, the second thing you brought up about have they benefited in the past, I don't think that's the way to address it, is by pro rata giving more to the lower applicants. I don't have strong feelings either way, but I'm just saying I don't think that's a vehicle to address that problem. That's all.
Okay, that's fair, good discussion. Again, to bring it back to the action for the CDA, do I have a motion to approve the attached grant application list in addition to the guidance provided by the CDA to authorize the pro rata distribution?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we've had some discussion. I'll just touch base with everybody. Is there any other discussion on this before we vote?
I would just like to make a point. This is Kathy.
Okay, go ahead, Kathy.
It just seems that when this started, it was clear that the CDA did not want to go into the weeds of determining financial need. So this is all just who wants to come up and who wants to see how much Shorewood will give them. And to go back now, I agree with David's points, but to go back now and try to sit in judgment without the documentation, without a history of the money given to each property, to me, it's too late in the ball game.
Yeah, and I think I'm fair enough. I mean, I would say the CDA made a determination that we knew there was a need there's no place there's not a need. I mean, nobody is not impacted by this, certainly the businesses that we're looking at here. And so trying to keep it as objective as possible and, to your point, you know, move as fast as possible. We don't have resources to do an in-depth financial analysis of every business to figure out where they are. So yes, 100% agreed that there were definitely some assumptions made, and to try to keep it objective and as broad-based as possible to help as many of the most impacted businesses in Shorewood. So I would say that. So, okay, we have a motion and a second. So Rebecca, would you take us around for the vote on this?
Sure. Amenta,
Yes.
Dawson,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Lorino,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Stokebrand,
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Sorry, just going back to the top, make sure we have no other. Okay. So just so we're all apprised, Mark, so with this, you will be able to move forward with cutting checks, I guess, effectively, right, to the businesses that have now been approved at their pro rata amount.
That is correct. Our hope is to be able to get those processed this week.
Excellent.
I still have to do some documentation of distributions on my end before we can get that into the mix, but I am very optimistic that we'll get checks in the mail by the end of the week.
Fantastic.
Does this have to be approved by the village board first?
No.
Okay. And I would just like to say thank you to Mark for putting on your small business loan officer hat.
100% agree.
Steph as well. She did a ton of communications and outreach.
Steph and all
Thank
of
you
the
for everyone's work. Peter too.
Yeah.
You put a lot of work working with staff. Yeah.
This is all on. This was a big effort, and I'm really happy. I think we did the right thing here. There's definitely nuance here, different interpretation. I appreciate all that conversation. I think that makes us better. So again, I think this is all good, and we moved relatively quickly. We had we had to get the village board on board. We had to get ourselves on board. So I think this is great that we're doing this. With that, I think we can adjourn unless anybody has any other business. Thank you all so much. We'll talk soon.
Oh, I just need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Motion to adjourn. Go ahead then.
Okay.
Moved by Stokebrand.
Second.
Okay.
Moved by Stokebrand.
Everybody's approved. We're adjourned. I'm going to officially adjourn us. Okay. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks, everyone.